Hello, today is Monday, June 23rd, 2025, and once again I'll be reading from the United Church of Christ Daily Devotional using a Christian text and scripture as a starting off point to talk about life in general, and encourage you to do that with whatever your religious tradition or non-religious tradition is. Find a text that speaks to you and relate it to life together today. The devotion I'll be reading today is written by Talitha Arnold. It's entitled You Are There. And Talitha bases the devotion upon Psalm 139, verse 7b through 8 from the New Revised Standard Version. Where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. And Talitha writes, Psalm 139 speaks to our greatest fear as human beings, being abandoned, left alone in desolate places far from home. It also speaks of God's greatest promise, that no matter where we are, God will be there. I've used Psalm 139 for memorial services, and I prayed it in the shadowed nights of my own soul. But last night, on my church's trip to the Arizona-Sonora-Mexico border, our first since the pandemic, Psalm 139 took on a new meaning. I've been to the border ever since I was a child growing up in Arizona and then as a pastor serving in New Mexico. The Sonoran Desert was my first home, with all its beauty and biodiversity, and its desolation and fearsomeness. Tragically, as the border has become more militarized, the wall longer, and the asylum process stopped, crossing the desert has become a descent into Sheol. To be sure, God's presence can be known through the words of Psalm 139. But for the people trying to find their way through an even more dangerous and deadly place, that presence needs to be known in the flesh, their flesh, and our flesh. The flesh of hands that leave water jugs along migrant trails and give out granola bars at the wall. Arms that embrace and uphold. Voices that make phone calls for help and speak out for just and humane policies. Psalm 139 promises that God will be present in all times and all places, and God calls us to make good on that promise. And Talitha's prayer. Compassionate One, present One, help us be your presence in the lives of your people. A couple things that come to mind when I read this is whatever your thoughts are on the sacred, God, whatever. I really think this speaks to the fact that whatever is good and just and reasonable and accepting and including and loving and caring and being compassionate and empathetic, that is a sacred presence. My own personal feeling is that if there is a God, God is not one to make a presence known without it being through other people or creatures or creation. That we find the sacred within ourselves when we act justly towards one another, caring for one another, being empathetic with one another, working to build community rather than build up ourselves. That is a sacred presence in this world. And it's really what we are all called to do and to be. We were created in community, and we live in community, and we are dependent upon one another for life, especially in this industrialized world. There's not very many people left in this world who are not dependent upon other human beings for at least sustenance. It's hard to live in the industrialized world off the grid alone without anyone, without needing any sort of help or commodity or something from anyone else in the world. But really, when we act justly towards one another and are empathetic with others' positions, that's truly bringing a sacred presence to the situation and helping to build community. There's those other thoughts that go off on a tangent in reading this when she talks about the things going on at the border. But I do think it's related that when we have compassionate care for other people who are leaving dire conditions in wherever they are living at the moment, conditions in which it's a fight or flight situation that they have to leave, and they leave everything behind and bring nothing with them except the clothes on their backs, to come to a place that holds promise for a better living condition, a better place to build community. What better way to bring a sacred presence to a situation than something like that? Something that's really far from what's going on in the United States right now, and something I think that we need to actively work against, and work towards building community and realizing that we are all one on this world, and we will only make it if we work together, and that brings the sacred presence into the lives of everyone. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Hope that's given you something to think about, and hope to talk to you again.